Combat bow. This is our teaching video, so if you're learning combat bow at Greenbelt, this is going to be a good tool for you. If you want to reference the regular video just to see the performance of combat bow, feel free. I'm going to go through the step-by-steps instead. Combat bow is one of my favorite forms. It is a Kempo form, or it came from Nick Zero's Kempo. There's different versions of this form, but this is how we learned it and how we perform it now. As a form, it reminds me a bit of Hand 4 in that it teaches lots of different things, or it puts lots of things together. Like Hand 4, it has a variety of different stances. It covers so many different skills that you can get, and I like the way it preps for the later form, which is Shushi. I'll show a basic version, but also show some of the more advanced things that can come out of this form. So, the first part of it starts off, the first section I'll do, it's done from mostly horse stances, and then you'll see a front stance transition. There's a lot of nice things in there. So I'm going to go through it first, and then I'll talk through it. So we start with the bow in front, which is unique to the form. Okay, so that's part one. That's not the end. Part one, excuse me. We have horse stance movement. So we have the first three commands are done from horse stance. So when we're in a horse stance, it's very strong from the side, but if you notice where everything we're doing is to the front. So there's a lot of this subtle up and down movement, and then hip, hip, side to side. When you pivot, same thing. You're dropping, it's the subtle dropping movement, and then the hips are going side to side, and same thing on the third technique. So I'll go through that and why, but what's happening is if somebody pushes you from the front and you're standing neutral, maybe feet together doing nothing, you're going to fall back. If you get into the world's best, strongest horse stance and you hold that position and somebody pushes you from the front, you are still going to fall back. The way that you prevent going back is as somebody pushes you, you try to absorb that by sinking into it, and then a lot of that will go down as opposed to back. So it's an interesting way that combat bow starts that and builds on that concept. Bow starts in front, as I said before, that's unique so far to our forms. The other ones all start in the back. I bow, grab high, and go high. The first block goes to over the head. My bow comes back towards my body. Low block, right hook, left hook. Reminder that these hooks are close to the body. My backhand flips for the second command. I pivot to 45 degrees. So I have my front wall, my side wall. Here's my front 45. Now, as I flip the hand, that hand comes up to my shoulder. I'm in a horse stance. How do I get power? Release, drop down a little bit. Draw the bow back to that side. So instead of going for the strike is happening by retracting. That's something very new for any of our forms. Now I'm going to do it a couple different ways. I can block, low strike, and then punch. I can block, low strike, draw back, and punch. And then within that, even more advanced, I can take the bow and I could extend it if I wanted to. I could also shorten the length of the bow. So at any position here, I'm able to make a lot of different things by this draw. The other option is a full thrust from there. So I could block, draw back, thrust, and punch. We typically do it with a draw and then a punch. So I'm going to go through it that way. So high, low, 1, 2. Push as I sink, drop down as I strike, draw, and then the bow's going to return to that middle position and punch. That sliding of the bow is going to be essential when you get to Shushi at brown belt. So really make sure you can slide through the hand and then back. Pivot all the way back while flipping hands. This is a full turn, so I've gone past the front wall to the 45 going the other way. My hands are in reverse, guitar position, palm up, palm down. There's my double block. I strike low, draw, and back to that punch. So it's exactly the same from the other side, just mirror image. Flip the left hand, post. So from the earlier pushing, posting, and pivoting, this covers post. So I step back. I'm absorbing the strike as it's coming in, whatever that may be. I don't really care about the bow, but if it was somebody coming at me with a bow, there's my block. If it's just simply a block here or trying to deflect, I know I have the support for my stance when I do that post. It also allows me to open front stance to front stance. So when I pivot, both feet are going to turn, and then I get the power and that thrust. A lot of people leave their bow high here at first. what happens is you're probably going to miss your target, and you're also weak in this position. When I say miss your target, if somebody is striking at you, it doesn't mean that they're up in the air. Their bow could be higher, but their head is still right about where mine is. So make sure you lower that. Plus it gives you the power as that strike. Body pivots, snap the hips. There's my power that I want. I bring my feet together as I draw back. How do I create power? Well, just like the horse stance, sink. So just let your weight drop. It doesn't have to be a very drastic movement, just drop. So that's part one of combat bow. The second part of combat bow is going to cover the sides and then the back. So I'm going to do the second half rather. When I finished my thrust, I'm going to go through it first. Okay, so I left off with my thrust. I'm going to move a bit over for the camera. I've made my thrust from here, my hand's going to scoop. So these next two moves are going to cover 45-degree angles. So imagine someone's attacking you from the side. This hand comes across, I'm going to turn. Now if somebody were striking at my foot from here, I'm going to lift. So I lift, I come across, down from this side, pop up, and then in with a strike. All right, so one more time. This hand scoops, throw down, up, and then shuffle in. Now imagining that somebody's standing at a 45 and they're going to attack at this leg. So when I pivot, I'm going to block all the way across, making sure I go past my foot. If you don't, you're going to get struck. So the bow's coming in from here. I don't want to stop where the person is, I want to stop past them. Just like when I did my block, I lifted my bow a little higher. I didn't want to block right in front of my face. So when I made my block here, the person is still at the 45. So my block goes past, but my low thrust and my middle thrust go to the same targets. So again, I just made my thrust to the 45 at the right. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm in a front stance. I'm going to open up that stance for the next one. I'm moving over for the camera. I'm going to move the left foot, strike with a reverse punch. I'll do this facing both ways so you can see it. From there, draw the bow back. So in this case, I could be pulling. Somebody grabs my bow, I pull back. Somebody goes to grab my bow, I draw back so they can't get it. I've made my strike. That's a roundhouse kick. 1, 2, cat stance 3. So this foot draws in. The bow protects the inside of my leg. From there, I kick with my right leg. That's a front kick. Hands change so that the thumbs are on top. Punch down, up on the same side, down, and then I'm going to flip both hands for the power of that reverse punch. Way open on that stance, so big pivot, up and around 1, helicopter 2, up and across for 3. So that last position, really thinking about how I'm opening up my stance. I'm not just turning and opening, but I'm sliding my foot across. The way that you do that, if you look at a line on the floor, I make sure that my foot stays on that line. If I let my foot drag in, I'll turn around and be in a horse stance, which is weak. The other one people mistake is they bring their foot all the way around, and now they're in a front stance, and they think they have it right, but they went too far. So use a line. Put an imaginary line down or follow something that's in your own floor. Slide across, staying on that line. When you pivot, you'll be in a good front stance from there. All right, so that part from the other side. So when we made that turn, and you couldn't see it, I'm going to do it from the other side. I've made my punch. I draw, roundhouse kick, 1, 2, cat stance. That's the third step back. So it's 2 full steps and a draw. My front hand or my right hand goes down to protect the inside part of my leg. Front kick, post, and then it's left, both hands head flipped. Left goes down, right comes up, left goes down, and now I'm going to cross my body with that punch. My foot slides across, pivot across, circle 1, up and around 2, and then I come back. Notice the bow is ending in the back of me, whereas it started in the front. That happened because at some point the end of the bow had changed. That was slightly before my time, but the change wasn't that important, so we kept doing it the way we've been doing it all these years. So again, Combat is one of my favorite forms. It has so many good things in it. I want you to work on that. Take your time, get all the steps, send a video back to me, let me review that. Anything that you may have missed, I'd be happy to critique and send back to you in a review. All right, good luck.